Okay, good morning. Let's get started. As I said, I'm Patrick Hogan with Bay Area Legal Services. I've been an attorney about 26 years. I'm happy to be with you this morning, and we're going to go through a brief slide presentation that I'll get started with right now. Our discussion is about Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So imagine that Mr. Jones, Michael Jones, is 76, and Mary Jones is 74. They've been married 22 years, lengthy marriage here in Florida. They moved 10 years ago from a northern state to Florida. I think many of us know that only about a third of Floridians residents were actually born in the state of Florida. We are actually second, I think, to Nevada in terms of the lowest percentage of people born in the state or territory in the United States. And I think we're about 34% of residents were born in the state of Florida. The remaining approximately 40% are from out of state, but within the United States and territories. And about 25% are international born and then come to Florida. But Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they migrated here into Newport Richey. They've been here 10 years and lived together until this past summer. Mr. Jones was admitted 4 months ago to a nursing home in Dade City. As we know, Newport Richey's on the western side of the county, Pasco County, and Dade City's more on the eastern side of the county, with a distance between the two. So Mr. Jones is over in Dade City now, and he's got a bed under a Medicaid ICP program, obviously long-term care for himself. Both Mr. and Mrs. Jones are retired. They're living on Social Security for more than 10 years. So they've been getting their monthly deposits automatically into checking accounts without difficulty. Mr. Jones has been getting $1,800, and Mrs. Jones received $1,200 this past month. And obviously these get adjusted every year. So we'll just assume for purposes that these are the 2022 numbers, which will go up, as we know, almost 9% into the new year. Mrs. Jones is still living in the home that they lived in for 10 years up until this past summer when Mr. Jones had to go into the nursing home. And that home is about 1,500 square feet. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They planned a little bit in advance, obviously, when they came to Florida. So the home is in her name only. However, it was built in the 1980s, which would have made it about 25 years old when they originally moved in, and it does now require some maintenance. The couple has one car, and that car is in Mary's name only. So I thought what we do is just go through a part of a week here, and we'll just use this week. So we're imagining this week for the Joneses. Obviously, Mr. Jones is in the nursing home. So the focus here is really on Mrs. Jones, who's now living alone at home. And Monday, we're going to discuss, she gets a home visit from NPR Heating and Air. Tuesday, she goes and buys a car. And Wednesday, she visits the dentist. So let's dive into the beginning of the week. So Mrs. Jones is at home on late Friday afternoon, I should say late Monday afternoon this week, and her doorbell rings. So she goes to the door, and someone presentable looks to be there. So she opens the door and answers it. A gentleman named Ed Field identifies himself as being from NPR Heating and Air. He gives her a card. He looks very professional. The card is says that he's bonded and insured and licensed, and everything looks on the up and up. So she begins to have a conversation with Mr. Field, and Mr. Field basically says that the AC system is 11 years old and out of warranty. Ed has knowledge of the neighborhood because he's been selling and installing systems in the neighborhood for 17 years. And in fact, he installed the system before 11 years ago when the prior owner installed it. So he knows that the new owners here that have now been here 10 years are going to potentially have a problem with their air conditioning. So Ed has been proactive and obviously approached Mrs. Jones at her home, and he has taken the step of presenting her with an estimate for a new air conditioning system for her home. Furthermore, Ed advises, as she's looking at the estimate, Mrs. Jones, that the home could use what they call a Motion 6000 with the ability to cool 24,000 BTU, which would be appropriate for a home of 1,500 square feet. So Mrs. Jones obviously has gotten a lot of information here in a very short period of time, and probably being wise, she says he wants to think about it. However, Ed, being a salesman, is quick to note that if she signs today, he can offer a maximum corporate discount and give her 30% off the purchase price. The important point here is Mary is basically induced by the 30% off, and she signs a written contract for a rather large dollar amount for $8,975. And it has some language that she doesn't fully understand about finance. So this candidly happens quite a bit around Florida. We're an elder state, and particularly we're in Pasco County, obviously, but we do get many, many calls similar to this hypothetical. So that was Monday. Now let's talk about Tuesday. Tuesday morning, she has a bad experience with her car. She just had the vehicle towed. So she gets it to the dealership, and the dealership informs her that the engine is blown. That's the word that gets back from the mechanic to the relationship person that she's dealing with at the dealership. She obviously thinks that's the worst of the worst, doesn't know exactly what to do. But they're kind of telling her that, look, the value of the car isn't worth much, and so you're probably going to need a new car. Obviously, they're a car dealership. They're happy to sell her a car. Mary, being probably wise and frugal, decides that a used car would probably be better. So she heads back to a local lot as she's headed home and finds a used car that she likes. She knows she has to visit her husband, who's in the nursing home in Dade City, and she's going to need a car to get back and forth because it will be the reliable transportation in Pasco County, going from the west side of the county to the east side of the county. Turns out Mary finds the car that she likes as a 2011 Honda Accord. She was presented on a tablet with some electronic information by the salesman, who assured her that the car would be great. And there was a bunch of language there about as is, and no representations and no warranties. But it was all presented on a pad, like an iPad, a tablet. And Mary swipes with her finger, and she's the proud owner of a new car. As soon as she gives her credit card, she pays $500 down and agrees to pay $4,000 financed. And there's fine print that basically says the dealership will use its best efforts to place the financing and do it effectively for her, so that they don't know when they leave talking to each other, the salesperson and Mary, they don't know who exactly will do the financing, but Mary thinks it's been financed for $4,000, and she's happy to get in the car. She does get in the car. She gets most of the way home, and the car breaks down just near her home. She's convinced it's a lemon. She just purchased a lemon. Next day, Wednesday, this is just yesterday in our hypothetical, obviously on the 26th of October, she wakes up with a toothache. Luckily, she has a good relationship with her dentist. So she calls the dentist and is lucky enough to get a noon appointment. The dentist is there at noon. She goes, and the dentist tells her that she's got 2 decaying fillings and needs to put an immediate crown on. And the doctor, I should say the dentist, will do it there, just needs approval. Mary legitimately believes the crowns are necessary. She's in a lot of pain, but she's understandably concerned about price and insurance matters. She does have, obviously, Social Security and is covered under a policy associated with her teeth. And she's concerned about the price. The accounting staff presents her with a sheet of paper, and she signs the sheet of paper. She's going to have work done on one of the teeth, though, instead of both, because she's concerned about the cost of doing them both the same day. She kind of wants to monitor the situation and see what happens. So she agrees to a charge of $1,900 to have the service done the same day because she has a good relationship with the dentist. She's there. She knows she can get it done. And the dentist goes ahead and crowns a tooth. Turns out the dentist crowned the wrong tooth. One was more substantially impaired than the other. And just between the dentist going in and out, the dental hygienist, and the accounting team coming in to get her approval for the charge, the dentist inadvertently crowned the wrong tooth. So it hasn't been a great week, obviously, for our caller here. We're at Bay Area Legal Services, obviously, and we get Mrs. Jones, and what does she do? Well, first thing she does is she calls the Florida Senior Legal Helpline, which is funded by the Department of Elder Affairs here in Florida, but managed by Bay Area Legal Services. And that number is 888-895-7873. It's open, I believe, daily from 9 to 4:30. When I say daily, I mean Monday through Friday, business days. And there's a website as well, candidly, that you can get access 24 hours. So feel free to use the webpage as well. I believe the sponsors of today's event did put some information out about the webpage as well. So Mary calls the hotline and wants to know, look, here's how my week has been going. I'd really like to get some service. What can I do? So the good folks at Bay Area Legal Services take some of the intake information, basically some of the general information about her from the first couple of slides that we covered. Again, to refresh for those that came on, obviously that's basically the age information of Michael and Mary, the time they've come down. They live in Newport Richey and the address. They do keep both addresses on file here at Bay Area, so they probably have the Newport Richey home address as well as the assisted, I should say, the nursing home facility in Dade City as well. And long story short, the centralized call-in number for the Senior Legal Helpline passes the information quickly to Newport Richey office of Bay Area Legal Services, and someone like me or another good attorney here at Bay Area will get on the phone with Mrs. Jones. So as we think about what to do, she's got several problems. First issue, circling back to Monday, is that she's got an AC system that was installed. She says last week, but again, this was Monday, so we know it was just a few days ago. It's just been a busy day. She's gone through a lot, as you imagine. She's had an AC system that's just been installed. She's got a tooth problem, and she had a problem with her car, which is generally the reason she's on the phone with us and not visiting us in the office. So she has an AC system that doesn't work, that she doesn't want, I should say. And so what to do about it. So let's kind of take these in order. First is the AC system. I think, as we all know, Florida is a state that promotes commerce, and the regulations and the state statutes are in place to facilitate transactions between people, such as buying an air conditioning system. So there's nothing illegal about home sale and a solicitation at home. But Mary may not know what we know as attorneys. And importantly, Florida has a consumer protection statute under Chapter 501 related to home solicitation sales. And that home solicitation sale statute is 501.031. I'm going to just quickly read it. And it says, every home solicitation sale shall be evidenced by a writing as provided in the section. In a home solicitation sale, the seller must present to and obtain from the buyer his or her signature to a written agreement or offer to purchase, which designates, as of the date of the transaction, the date on which the buyer actually signs, and which contains a statement of the buyer's rights, which statement complies with subsection 2. And subsection 2 says, under the second subsection, The statement must, A, appear under the conspicuous caption, all caps, buyer's right to cancel, and B, under the statute, the language must read, this is a home solicitation sale, and if you do not want the goods or services, you may cancel the agreement by providing written notice to the seller in person, by telegram, or by mail. This notice must indicate that you do not want the goods or services and must be delivered or postmarked before midnight of the third business day after you sign this agreement. If you cancel this agreement, the seller may not keep all or part of any cash down payment. So in Calling Bay Area, we are now alerting the caller that she's in luck as it relates to the AC system. Under Florida law, that constitutes a home solicitation sale. The system was actually purchased on Monday, and that system is still within 3 days of purchase. So with our suggestion, we might highlight for her that if she doesn't want the AC system, she can notify them today. I might suggest that she do it via phone, or maybe certainly if she could get to the postal service to have something stamped and delivered to the postal service, potentially a certified return receipt or other mailing that would have a record of delivery to the seller. But basically she would nullify the sale and she can get out of it. So lucky for her, Florida has a home solicitation sale rule that within 3 days you can get out of a home solicitation sale. So Mary's next issue, the car doesn't work. She obviously still has a car that's at the dealership. Not exactly sure that she's made any phone calls back yet. So we ask, and she says, no, I've just left the car there at the dealership. I don't know what to do with that car, but in the meantime, I did buy a car for $500, as we talked earlier. That car, as I indicated here, is a 2011 Honda Accord. And she describes what's on the slide, which is that she used her finger. She couldn't quite read the language because it was in very small print. She does use glasses, she says, over the phone. She couldn't read the fine print, but she used her finger and she kind of trusted the gentleman that was there selling to her. And she was right in front of the 2011 Accord. So she figured things look fine. And so she approved it. She gave the credit card and they said, well, we've only charged $500 for a credit card, but they're going to charge more. So for this one, there's a concern, obviously, as to the $4,000 that she agreed to pay in addition to the $500 hasn't been etched in stone with financing. And so there's the potential that that dollar amount could actually fall through. As we know, Mary purchased a system the day before on Monday, and the language associated with that purchase basically had her financing that purchase. Again, fine print that she didn't really completely understand. And so her credit actually was impacted by her Monday purchase that we just told her she can get out of. And obviously we're having a verbal discussion with her, but she can get out of her Monday purchase, but the credit isn't going to adjust fast enough, given that she's just put in $8,000 plus of charge. And so the $4,000 can't be financed by the auto dealership potentially. So then that $4,000 goes back on her credit card. So she now has a credit card that she had before, and she could easily put the $500 on, but now she's got $4,500 that the used car dealership has put on her card. And obviously that's a much different thing than she thought, partially because as we're talking, I'm explaining, well, the credit card interest rate could potentially be 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23%, which is obviously a high number. And sometimes when you finance vehicles, you can get much better deals than that. Obviously interest rates are rising, but long story short, she could certainly get something much less than 20% interest rate on the $4,000. So the potential exists that when she did this loose agreement to seek best efforts for financing, that additional 4,000, again, in total 4,500, is going to end up on her credit card. So we suggest that she call the credit card company and log on if she can, and just double check as to how much they've put on her credit card, because if the full amount has gone on, candidly, the agreement that she remembers signing was a best efforts agreement. They did not alert her to the fact that they might be charging an additional 4,000, because she thought she was just going to pay a few dollars each month going forward as part of some financing arrangement, as is typical for most vehicles. We all know 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years are very, very common in the auto industry. And so she thought she would have a small payment per month, since she was only financing about $4,000. So she is concerned about the financing, but we've given her a takeaway: reach out, and certainly you can call Bay Area Legal Services back and we'll talk to her again. The concern for many clients that we speak with is the uncertainty of the future. So while for the first concern related to the home, we've told her she could probably get out because of Florida's home solicitation sale agreement, obviously Mary's a little uneasy about the car purchase. Not only doesn't it work, but she's worried that they're now going to hit her credit card for the full 4,500. And so I try to calm her a little bit that, look, you can make the phone call, you'll find out the information, and then you can speak to us again to let us know what happens, and we can monitor it. So as it relates to the vehicle, she's got an issue potentially with her credit card company. So calling the credit card company is good, because she can alert them right away of the potential problem, and they can make a note of it in the file with her record. And then obviously there's the issue of the dealership, the used car lot that she bought it from. She knows that, or she thinks that the car is a lemon. And so she asked me, well, what about the vehicle? I think it's a lemon. And I have to explain to her that unfortunately, Florida's lemon law does not apply to used cars. As many may know, Florida does have a lemon law, and that's associated with vehicles that are actually sold new, and that due to conditions of the vehicle have to be in service, meaning the repair shop or something at the dealership for an extended period of time or an extended number of visits, or a combination thereof under the statute. That's too detailed to get into today. But unfortunately, I have to tell Mary that while she thinks it's a lemon, and she may be right, it's not covered by the lemon law. And so we do have a problem with, she now has a second vehicle that doesn't work, and her credit card may have $4,500 charge on it. So I try to calm her to just, look, let's stick with finding out about the cost to you to start with, whether it's the charge has actually gone through. And then obviously we can reach out if we need to by letter, and that can be Mary sending her own letter. It can be us discussing the language of a letter she might send, but more to come on discussions with Mary as it relates to what could happen here with the car. She does feel depressed because she obviously didn't get what she thought she had bargained for the vehicle. She knows she bought it as is, but she was hoping for better and didn't think that that could possibly happen to her. As for the third item, the dental office sent a bill for $1,500, right, not covered by insurance. And there are a couple issues here that I would discuss with her. The first issue is that, as we've discussed, she has just been made aware as she was leaving that they actually crowned the wrong tooth. So the dentist didn't do a reasonable job. The handoffs within the office and the dentist didn't read the chart appropriately and didn't look at the right tooth and didn't look at what she had approved. So the dentist kept the wrong tooth. So she, again, much like the car, has a couple of issues. And those couple of issues are, again, the potential for malpractice associated with the work that the dentist did, and also the charge itself. Not to mention the fact of, does she want to go back to the dentist, or does she want to have the second tooth capped by someone else? Again, all of those concerns. The point was, today is Thursday. She was there yesterday only because she had such a bad pain, and she's now regretting her decision to have a hastily agreed to the service all in one visit. She thought it was the best thing to do, and usually it would be. It's just in her circumstance, it turned out that the dentist didn't do the correct job. So here, again, there's a monetary component, and then there's the actions taken by the dentist. So I would probably start in discussing this with Mary. I would say, look, we at Bay Area Legal Services handle civil matters. And again, we handle them, in this case, with the Senior Legal Helpline for residents around the county here in Pasco, 60 and above. And I'm happy to discuss, but we are not likely to necessarily help her with a personal injury action, malpractice action, that basically the private bar can assist her with. But I'm happy to talk to her about it. And I would probably give her the number for the Florida Bar Referral Service, which is 800-342-8011. And they have an elder panel for anyone that's 60 and over, for a fee of $50 and sometimes no cost, depending upon the area of law that you're interested in talking to someone. You can speak with an attorney, get the name of an attorney, and then call that attorney, have a low or no cost consultation, depending upon the type of consultation that you need. So I would encourage her to call that number, and I'd say, look for the following things. Look for someone that understands the kind of thing that you're talking about, and shop around, meaning don't take the first attorney that you happen to talk to. Do talk to 2 or 3 attorneys. You can certainly get 2 or 3 names by calling back a couple of times if you need to. And obviously, if she knows any attorney, she's more than welcome, obviously, to speak to them and see what they may know, or if she can get a referral. But we might have some additional discussions about the bill and the $1,500 that's not covered. Obviously, if they did the wrong work, obviously the billing side of that should be relatively easily resolved. I would think that a dental office that's made the mistake of capping the wrong tooth would want to work the whole thing out together. So I would probably try to reassure that something might be able to be done here, but no guarantees. The legal system's unknown, and never know what a judge or jury, if it ever got to that in the future, would do. But certainly we at Bay Area are used to taking these type of phone calls. So we would discuss it with her, and we, in this case, for a dental matter, might take the time to refer her, as I said, to the Florida Bar Referral Service. It just so happens that among Mary's items as well, she's on the phone with me, and as we've been talking, she began to look at her credit card charges, and she sees out of the blue a $998 charge from Uber, which she doesn't know anything about. And again, she wouldn't have looked at it, but I mentioned the potential that her car is going to have a $4,000 charge. So when she did, she was glad she looked. Doesn't see anything about the car yet, but she does see that there's an Uber charge for $998 that she never authorized and doesn't know anything about. So now she's frustrated and concerned that maybe someone at the dealership or some family member of someone that works at the dealership may have gotten a hold of her credit card information and may have used her card to go on several rides or to make some kind of prepaid charge or credit to Uber. For that item, obviously, I encourage her to call the credit company immediately and dispute the charge, let them know that it's not something she ever authorized, not a service that she ever engaged in. And she takes that to heart, and she says readily that she'll go ahead and do that. So generally, the 4 issues that we've talked about here, the Monday air conditioning purchase that she's going to try to get out of, the car, the dental office, and now this charge related to an Uber. These are fairly common. These are the kinds of things that we deal with all the time. And we encourage people to call Bay Area Legal Services immediately when any of these issues come up. The reason being, they're freshest in the mind of the caller, number one. Number two, if the issue is raised with the party that's done the wrong or with the party that you want to cancel a contract with, it's best done sooner in time. And your remedies, like the home solicitation sale, can best be taken care of immediately. You may, if you miss a deadline, you're going to potentially lose a right. So the one thing I'll encourage is we deal with so many good people, 60 and above, that occasionally we see people who are might be embarrassed by something like this happens. Obviously, this is an example week related to Mary and the challenge she's had. She's living alone now. She's got her husband that she loves and visits every other day. So this is a very real scenario that we see. But people sometimes are embarrassed to reach out And I guess what I'm encouraging is always reach out sooner, not later. There's no harm. The phone call is confidential. It's just between you and Bay Area Legal Services. We won't reach out to a third party, and we won't even take any action on your behalf, because we're not your attorney unless and until we were to agree to a written contract in writing that you of your own free will agreed to sign. There's no guarantee that we will take your case, obviously, when you call in, but we will certainly, if you get some phone time with us, walk through the issues, much like we've covered here. Obviously, I've expedited several of these discussions because they were all realistic, and I wanted to point out the varying degrees of remedy that you can get through for some of the problems that you may have in a given week. As we talked, the system we have with the Florida legislature that passes the laws and that us citizens are living by, we're lucky to have that home solicitation sale roof of the AC system that she can return and get out of the charge. For the week that she's had, the last discussion I would be getting to with Mary would be that candidly, she's only got $1,200 a month in income, and she's now got some expenses. The initial fact pattern involved $1,800 that was going from Social Security, obviously, to her husband, but part of the ICP program and getting that bed from Medicaid is that those funds will be given directly to the nursing home. So those funds will not be available to Mary for her use. So she's going to be living on only the $1,200, and that's adjustment for her, obviously, right? She's been living in a joint household with her husband for the last 10 years. They've had about $3,000 of income a month, which is a sizable number in terms of monthly income for people who are retired. We deal with a lot of people that have much less. Obviously, there are people that have more. But when your income goes from $3,000 jointly to only $1,200 from the time he went into the facility this past summer, and then she's got $1,200 to live on, the realization of what that means may not have been fully appreciated yet. And so, Mrs. Jones, I would generally indicate, look, do you have a budget for your $1,200? Obviously, you were talking about an air conditioning purchase and made one that hopefully you can get out of here when you notify Ed, who came into the field and was selling you the unit and the business that you're going to notify to get out of it. But that might have been a couple $100 a month. Obviously, you've got food. You had a car and had car insurance. You had to get car insurance changed when you bought the used car to drive it over the lot. You've got electric and cable and phone bills each month. So there's not a lot of room for discretionary and disposable income to just be spending on things that aren't necessities. And she understands. She's not naive. She worked for a number of years and retired. But long story short, she's happily having a discussion with someone like me, because it's been 4 months since she's been going through this with her husband and living alone, and she's been making friends the best she can. But as we all know, it can sometimes be difficult the older you get to make friends. So again, the benefit of talking to someone like Bay Area is that you can raise ideas and just give some thought. So I'm encouraging again, don't wait. Call as soon as you may have any kind of a legal problem. Don't be in fear that we will do anything other than try to treat you professionally, and keep your discussion confidential unless in writing you want us to do something different, and we do agree to do that in writing differently. But we are specialized in the work of helping with those that are 60 and over, and Bay Area does an awful lot of work for those around the state of Florida. Obviously, I'm in Pasco County, but we represent Pinellas County, people in Pinellas County. We've got a big office, obviously, in Hillsborough County, with Tampa being the biggest city in the area. And we have relationships in Sarasota and Manatee County. So we help thousands of people in the community, the greater Tampa Bay area, even outside Pasco County. As I said, Mary's comment to me is she's happy to have someone to talk to. She wasn't sure she was going to be able to get someone on the line, but she's thankful that when she called, she actually got same-day service. And it appears that, from my perspective, someone within Bay Area in the Tampa call center got it to us because they realized Mary was going through some anxiety and had some difficulty and wanted someone to talk to immediately. So my supervisor, that's the office manager, got it to me. With her approval, we agreed to speak to you as as quickly as we could, and that's why I spent the time with you. Frequently, I'll spend an hour of time with people on the phone. Again, this was a hypothetical that she had several things take place this week. There is a component of financing and signing contracts and dealing with small print and technology and all of these things that can, be less than easily understood, to say the least. And you can potentially have people who are not honorable that you're dealing with. So again, speaking with an attorney sooner rather than later is always the best. So I thank Mary for calling and basically say, look, why don't you get with your credit card company, speak if you want first about the dental charge that may come through on your card, given that you're in pain. Second, you can talk about the car with them and just double check the 4,000. You seem to have checked the online while I've been talking to you. So the 4,000 doesn't appear to be there, but you can alert them to the transaction with the same vendor as the 500. And obviously, it's this strange charge card for $9.98 from Uber is there. You can certainly put a freeze on that. And candidly, you may want to put a freeze on your account or any other charges. So there's no new charge that may come about, since there may be fraud of some kind for the $9.98. There is the potential to make a police report. We at Bay Area don't handle criminal actions, but we generally, someone like me might advise, look, if there's a charge there and it appears legitimate, the credit card company can look at that, and they can certainly put it in a dispute pile, if you will, on their side after you complain about it. And they'll do an investigation. And if it turns out to be something that you haven't charged, they'll follow up, and there may be something that on your behalf you might want to file a police report at some time in the future. So I'm happy to discuss any of these types of issues, whether it's Bay Area or whether it's the types of credit issues that people have. Consumers, as we all are, but particularly those of us that are aging and getting older. I'm about 50 myself, and deal with a lot of good seniors, and I love doing it. But we all can use some help and a good reminder for different areas of things that we interact with. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about what they want here this morning. I can certainly answer any questions and the kinds of things that I talked about. But in conclusion, I'm just going to leave Mary alone with the conversation to encourage her to call me back, but give her a day or two to certainly cancel the AC agreement and be on the phone with the credit card company, and then call me back with what she learns. So good morning. Any questions from anybody that's participating on the line? I'm happy to talk to anybody. I believe this is being recorded, so it may be at some time in the future that you see it. If that happens to be the case, you can certainly log on to the web and get Bay Area Legal Services online. You can submit something. It's after hours, as I said, but between 9 and 4:30 Monday through Friday, you can certainly dial the number that we give folks, and that number again, the Bay Area Legal Services, the Senior Legal Helpline, available to eligible Florida residents age 60 and older. And to apply, you can call 888-895-7873.